He ordered every man, woman, and child in a captured city to be beheaded, their skulls cleaned, stacked, and cemented into towering pyramids that touched the sky. 70,000 heads formed one of them, a grotesque monument built not out of stone, but out of human remains. Soldiers dragged bodies through the streets, collecting skulls like bricks, arranging them into perfect geometric shapes. And at the center of the massacre stood Tamerlane, Timur, a conqueror who believed terror was the purest weapon of war. He burned entire populations alive inside their own homes. He executed prisoners by the tens of thousands. He ordered artisans to cut off the arms of surviving defenders. He turned cities into deserts of bones and ash. These were not battlefield casualties. These were ritual punishments, carefully planned and theatrically staged. Timur was born in 1336 near Samarkand. Not a descendant of Genghis Khan, but obsessed with Mongol glory, he spent his life trying to surpass the brutality of the empire he idolized. From a young age, he showed extraordinary intelligence and an even more extraordinary capacity for cruelty. After a hunting accident left him partially crippled, he earned the nickname Timur the Lame, Tamerlane. The injury only hardened him. He convinced himself that destiny had chosen him for conquest, and that fear was the language of power. He was a military genius, strategic, adaptive, relentless. But beneath his brilliance lay a cold-blooded sadism that shaped every campaign he waged. Timur believed mercy weakened empires. He believed terror increased loyalty. And he believed slaughter created stability. His psychological traits were unmistakable: extreme paranoia, absolute confidence in divine destiny, pleasure in mass suffering, and a pathological obsession with leaving behind physical symbols of domination, especially skull pyramids. To Timur, killing was not enough. The world needed to see his victories long after he marched away. His conquests spanned Persia, Mesopotamia, the Caucasus, India, Syria, Anatolia. Everywhere he walked, civilization collapsed. Cities that resisted him were exterminated. Cities that surrendered were punished anyway to prevent future arrogance. He once promised full mercy to a city if it opened its gates. It obeyed. Timur entered peacefully, then ordered the entire population slaughtered because their obedience came too late. He built pyramids of skulls there too. As his armies moved outward, the terror followed like a shadow. Wails of survivors echoed across deserts. Roads became lined with crucified bodies. Rivers ran red with blood. And everywhere skull towers rose, silent, immovable testimonies to a man who believed death was architecture. And the worst was yet to come. One of Timur's earliest demonstrations of absolute terror occurred during his campaign against Isfahan. At first, the city surrendered and paid tribute. But when a small riot broke out, an accident of chaos, not rebellion, Timur declared the entire population guilty. His soldiers received a simple order: kill everyone. They slaughtered people in the streets, in mosques, in markets, in their homes. When the killing was done, Timur commanded that each soldier present a fixed number of severed heads. If they failed, they were executed in place of their victims. The result was a mountain of skulls, so massive that ambassadors described it as, quote, a white hill that glistened in the sun. Chronicle after chronicle confirms the number: 70,000 skulls, arranged into perfect pyramids. Timur inspected the towers personally, adjusting their shape, demanding symmetry. The pyramids were not merely trophies. They were messages carved into the earth. Messages that read, resist, and you will cease to exist. When his armies approached Herat, he ordered the defenders impaled alive on long stakes. Some were burned inside clay ovens. Women were enslaved. Children were sold or executed. In the aftermath, skull pyramids were erected at every city gate, facing the roads, so all travelers would know whom the land obeyed. Timur's cruelty grew with every conquest. In Sivas, he promised the defenders safety if they surrendered. They opened the gates. Timur congratulated them, then ordered 3,000 soldiers buried alive. Their muffled screams echoed through the soil as Timur rode away, satisfied with the sound. But nowhere was his brutality more infamous than Baghdad, one of the great cities of the Islamic world. When the city resisted, Timur responded with total annihilation. His troops executed so many civilians that the Tigris River turned red with blood. Chroniclers reported 120 towers of skulls erected around the city, each tower stacked with carefully cleaned, neatly arranged heads. Not even religion softened Timur's wrath. He destroyed mosques, burned libraries, gutted markets, and mutilated scholars. When clerics pleaded for mercy, Timur replied that God favored the victorious, and he was victorious. His massacres were not chaotic. They were systematic. Soldiers moved through districts with lists. They dragged men into squares, beheaded them in rows, then assigned teams to collect skulls for construction. Women were subjected to rape, enslavement, or execution, depending on Timur's whims. Children were killed first to prevent future rebellion. For Timur, cruelty was order. And with every campaign, the pyramids grew taller. Monuments of bone stretching across continents, each one a reminder that no resistance would be tolerated. But the greatest horrors were still ahead. India, Syria, and the battle that brought Timur face to face with another empire. Timur's invasion of India revealed the full extent of his obsession with extermination. He crossed the Indus River with tens of thousands of cavalry, sweeping through Punjab like a sandstorm of steel. Cities surrendered before he arrived, but he slaughtered them anyway. When he reached Delhi, one of the richest cities in the world, its rulers mustered an army of war elephants armored in chainmail. Timur responded by setting camels on fire and driving them at the elephants, causing terror and chaos in the enemy lines. The battle shattered Delhi's defenses. Then came the massacre. For days, Timur's soldiers roamed the city, killing anyone they found. Entire neighborhoods were put to the torch. Historical sources describe 100,000 prisoners executed in a single day, their bodies stacked into a grisly carpet across the plains. Timur claimed he killed them to prevent rebellion, but the truth was simpler. Mass murder was his signature. He ordered skull pyramids built in Delhi, too. Children were thrown from rooftops. Women were dragged through the streets and beaten to death. Noblemen were flayed alive. By the time Timur left India, Delhi was a ruin of corpses, smoke, and broken walls. From India, he turned west toward Syria, leaving a trail of devastation across Mosul, Tikrit, and Aleppo. Aleppo resisted fiercely, so Timur reduced it to ash. His soldiers cut down anyone who tried to flee. Houses were burned, with families trapped inside. When the fires died, skull towers rose again over the rubble. But it was Damascus, one of the oldest cities in the world, that faced the most chilling example of Timur's ritual terror. The city surrendered, hoping mercy was possible. Timur entered peacefully, praising the beauty of Damascus and admiring its craftsmen. Then, without warning, he ordered the city to be plundered and burned. His troops slaughtered civilians in the streets, looted every district, and set the city ablaze. Eyewitnesses wrote that the sky glowed red for a week. Timur took the city's artisans and scholars to Samarkand. The talented lived, the rest died. Hundreds of thousands were murdered. The mosques, markets, and libraries of Damascus were destroyed. And when he left, he erected skull pyramids visible from miles away. His destruction of Damascus was so complete that people later said death followed Timur like a second shadow. Every city he approached understood the rule: surrender and die quickly, resist and die slowly. By now, his empire stretched from the Mediterranean to India, but Timur still hungered for a final conquest, a clash with a rising power in Anatolia. The Ottoman Empire. In 1402, Timur marched west to confront Sultan Bayezid I, ruler of the expanding Ottoman Empire, a conqueror as ambitious as Timur himself. The collision of these two empires was inevitable, two predators circling the same territory, each determined to dominate the Muslim world. Timur crossed Anatolia with the same ritualized brutality he had perfected elsewhere, Cities that resisted were erased. Villages were burned. Prisoners were blinded in masses, sometimes thousands at a time, then sent staggering home as living warnings. Tower after tower of skulls rose along the roads to Ankara, each built with mathematical precision. The Battle of Ankara was catastrophic for the Ottomans. Timur outmaneuvered Bayezid, encircled his forces, and shattered the Ottoman army under the scorching July sun. Bayezid himself was captured, a humiliation so great that legends claimed Timur kept him in an iron cage like an animal. Whether the cage story is myth or truth, what is certain is that Bayezid died in captivity, and Timur paraded his victory across the world. After the battle, Timur ravaged Anatolia. Entire towns were depopulated. Turkish soldiers were executed in rows. Survivors were enslaved and marched east. Chroniclers wrote that the highways of Anatolia became rivers of bones, the earth so saturated with blood that dogs and vultures followed Timur's armies like loyal troops. Skull pyramids dotted the landscape from Angora to Smyrna. In Smyrna, Timur ordered the defenders, Christian knights, to be beheaded to the last man. Their skulls were arranged into a special pyramid for the infidels, as Timur called it. When the city fell silent, he turned eastward again, ready for more conquest. But fate intervened. As Timur prepared a massive campaign to invade China, a project he believed would crown him as the greatest conqueror since Genghis Khan, he fell ill on the journey. Fever consumed him. His strength collapsed. The man who had slaughtered nations now struggled to breathe. He died in 1405 in Otrar, on the edge of the empire he built with blood. His body was returned to Samarkand and buried in the Gur Emir mausoleum. His tomb carried an inscription warning that any disturbance would unleash a catastrophe, quote, greater than any seen before. Centuries later, Soviet archaeologists opened the tomb in 1941. Within hours, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Superstition or coincidence, the timing reinforced Timur's grim legend. Even in death, he brought disaster. But his real legacy lies not in myth, but in the ruins he left behind. Cities erased from maps, civilizations scarred for generations, millions dead across Persia, India, Syria, Anatolia, and the Caucasus. And everywhere, the same symbol rising under the burning sun. Pyramids of skulls, the architecture of terror Timur used to rule half the known world. History remembers him not as a builder, a reformer, or a hero. It remembers a man who carved empires from flesh, who turned slaughter into ceremony, who believed death was a message carved in bone, a conqueror who forged his legacy from skulls, and left behind a world forever haunted by his shadow.